Join us for another episode where real men have real conversations about leadership, relationship, morality, and dominion. Welcome to Mancode.
Well, hello, viewing audience. I'd like to thank you for joining us for another great Mancode conversation. My name is Jonathan Russell. I'll let the gentlemen, as always, go around and introduce themselves.
Malcolm Crawford, Malcolm Crawford, how's everybody doing?
Danielle Lewis.
Austin McMurray, welcome.
All right, thank you all. And again, viewing audience, thank you for joining us. We've been having a great time with these Mancode conversations. I've enjoyed this weekly chat with my brothers. Every week we kill something a little bit different. If you've been tuning in, you know the last couple of weeks we've actually been dealing with the topic of sex, which is a big issue not only in personal lives but just in society in general. Now, one thing we've always kind of tried to gear everything toward, not excluding women, but again, this is called Mancode. So we try to gear the mindset of men just to shift it into a way where they're thinking a little bit correct, doing things properly, and honoring God in the process. So tonight, as you can see from our advertisement on that, we call this episode Thinking with the Right Head. Now, I know that's a curious title for a lot of people, but at the same time, I want to say speaking, men definitely, you understand where I'm going, but it is about defining how you think and thinking in the right way. So just want to kind of ask this because I see this so prevalent in society. I see people just so stirred by how they appear. Does sex really define me as a person if I'm a man or a woman? Because I just see that just being such a heavy thing. I just want to hear from y'all on this.
I think it's been an identifier, secularly, I would say, for masculinity. To prove whether or not, prove your manhood, so to speak, a rites of passage from boy to man, I think in history that has been kind of a thing, if you, old school, excuse me, but, if your son was kind of soft, they was like, boy, you need to get you some, as if, getting you some was going to put hair on your chest and drop the bass in your throat, and there was some magical transformation that was going to happen when you get you a little taste, but yeah, most assuredly, I think that culturally over time that has been viewed that way.
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, I think it has been put on a pedestal. I think it's funny when you watch a lot of reality TV shows, like it's this one on the OWN network that I watch a lot. And you get all these people that come out and say, I love God, I love Jesus, that's important to me. And they talk about their values. Then it comes to, because the purpose of the show is to find somebody who you can potentially marry. And when it comes time to talk about sex, everybody's like, is sex important to you before marriage? And it's like the concept of, yeah, I got to test drive the car before I know I like it. And so it's like, I feel like it's become a priority for a lot of people nowadays. And it's one of those things where it's like, I need it, I want it, I got to have it because I got to make sure I know you're good in bed before I marry you. As if like that's the most important thing in marriage. Like it's an important thing in marriage for sure, but it's not the most important. And it's something that you can learn more, you can study, you can read books, you can see a therapist about it, right? But it's just so, it's like I said, it's put on this pedestal so much, and that has become like the leading value for a lot of people and a lot of men now when it comes to relationships.
Well, that's interesting, fellas. Yeah, I would look at it like this, there's two camps, of course, to that, like Danielle said, you got the secular camp and then you got the Christian camp, those, the believers who definitely have the right thought, sex and don't have sex until marriage. But like I said, when you're coming up and you're not in that particular area or that mind frame, the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And it has been told to me, and a lot of studies say that a man thinks about sex every 8 seconds. So if you think about sex every 8 seconds, and then the question was asked, does it identify who I am? No, it may not actually identify who you are, but it's constantly on your mind, and that's one of your driving motivations through the day. Think back when I was playing sports, like we talked about the locker room there. You know, men are always trying to take body counts, how many you got, and so forth. You know, may he rest in peace. There was this great athlete talking about he had 20,000 women just to sell books and whatever, you know, but you know, stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, and sometimes as far as identifying a man, they might say, yeah, man, he's a ladies' man, you know, go to him and this type of thing. You know, if you need to learn how to deal with women, you know, go to this guy and so forth. So to some people, it might identify them, but I really look at it like a lack of understanding or a shallow way of really identifying who you are, because ultimately, I don't think that no one defines who you are except for God.
Made some good points on that. I have to say it really breaks down to maturity versus immaturity. Because one thing you look at, I'm gonna cater this toward men, since we thinking with the right head. You look at the body count and you want to bag as many as you can. You look at that in the sense of, okay, I'm not doing any harm, but in the sense you are, you're doing yourself harm, because you're actually setting yourself up for failure later on, because you're never really going to be satisfied because you keep feeding a bottomless pit. But on top of that, the mature mind knows that, okay, I am who I am. I'm comfortable who I am. If you know the Lord, you're definitely comfortable because you have Christ. If you don't know the Lord and you're a mature individual, you need to know the Lord, but at the same time, you have a better definition of who you are. You understand that sex is not actually the barometer of your individuality. An immature person wants to play the game. You want to bag as many as you can. You want the scorecard. So again, it has a lot to do with your train of thought. And if you do think in that way, what do you want to be known for? Just bedding a lot of women, or you know, being able to take advantage of a lot of men, or vice versa? So you really have to just kind of step back and analyze things just before you really jump into it. But that brings me to another thing. And you look at this and it's kind of in the same way, because sex is looked at as a good thing, but at the same time, when it's misused, when it's mistreated, it's also, it has the most horrible negative light. So how can sex be vilified and glorified at the same time?
And I want to, if I can just jump back, because you made a point I want to speak to about that first particular statement. As far as identifying us, we may not identify ourselves as it, but I think back when I was young, some people would identify me by that. They would go around and say, man, don't hang around him. He's just a dog. So you can get labeled by it, because if you're messing around and so forth and going from here to there, the girlfriends are saying, nah, he ain't no good. He's just a dog and blah, blah, blah. So you can get a label, whether, you know, that who you really are is a different thing. But yeah, they said, man, you know, and sometimes it can be a negative thing, especially maybe with the females, but with the guys, it can be a positive, you know, what you know, the guys think, yeah, man, he's got it going on. And the girls think, but nah, he's off limits because he's just, he's no good, you know. So
true. Known by the company you keep. Sometimes you're your own worst company.
yeah, for sure.
But who want to chop that up? How can you vilify and glorify sex at the same time?
I think Pastor Malcolm kind of hit on it just in that last statement, you know, just how the more, how can I put it? It seems that for men, it was, and maybe even still is, about conquest, about how many women you can actually have sex with in whatever period of time, you know, that you are, before you actually settle down into a relationship. And I think that's where the celebratory aspect of being promiscuous lies in. But then, to Pastor Malcolm's point, the villainizing piece is that if you are known for that, then you aren't known as a trustworthy, stable, reliable individual, that you're only after this one particular thing, especially how you treat the female after you have gotten sex from her. If you get sex from her, then all of them are one night stands, then you're basically just saying, you know, I'm just getting mine and just discarding you. I may circle back around to you, may not. It all depends on the relationship. You know, sometimes you have fair weather friends. For those who don't know what a fair weather friend is that it's just somebody who you keep very close to you, that you can always go back to in whatever times you feel you need to make that kind of connection. So I think that might be a way that you have that villainizing versus celebrating, that happens, dynamic that kind of happens among men.
Great point. Great point. What you thinking,
Yeah.
Austin?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Danielle said. I think the villainizing aspect from it comes from just kind of like it shows sometimes how you view women, and you degrade them. All they're good for is sex, but and that comes from being braggadocious about it, like you guys were talking about earlier. Is like, here's my body count, like, yo, 1 2 3, knock them all down, right? I think that's where like villainizing it comes from. But if you're a guy who's quiet about it and you don't talk about it much, and you're making sure that your girls please whoever, then it's glorified because it's like, oh, he's so sweet, he's romantic, he's X, Y, and Z. So it all comes, I think that notion of like vilified versus glorified comes with how much men talk. Because let's be honest, when we do get some, like, we like to let everybody know.
Oh, yeah.
I think about, back to like high school and college, when a guy got some, everybody in the school knew, everybody on campus knew. And I think that's where that villain comes from, is when you go around bragging about it all the time.
Just kiss and tell him, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was never one to kiss and tell too much, but like I said, but when I was young, I tell you, man, to me, there was nothing villainized about it. To me, it was all glorification. The more I get, the better, because that's just the mindset of the natural man. There was when it came to that, hey, I really didn't care. I'm just out here, and I felt I was so egotistical and so arrogant, man. I was doing the people a favor. Hey, I'm doing you guys a favor. See, like I'm saying, those type of things. Just a messed up mindset, but it can be vilified too, because like I say, whenever, well, we're gonna get into this later, but yeah, it can't be vilified. I don't want to address it too much right now because there's some other thoughts I want to say when it comes to some other things we're gonna be dealing with today. But yeah, but for me as a young man, there was nothing negative about it with me. I didn't even see this wrong.
You made a good point. See, the thing you have to look at is really your intention. So you could be a quiet assassin, or you could be a town ringer. Every time you tap something, everybody know. Or you be that guy just slowly, you got you a sniper count. So they call you Steel-Eyed Joe. It doesn't matter which it all has to do with really your intention and your heart. You could be actually a good person, but use sex in villainous ways that hurts people. So you always have to look at A, your intent, and B, I just want to drop this thought. And this comes from, again, a mature mindset, even probably having given your life to the Lord. But look at those women, especially if you have that mindset of, hey, I just want to knock them out. Think of your sister, think of your mother, and think that that's somebody else's sister and that's somebody else's mother. And also think in the sense that for those who have some introduction to Christ, think that the Bible considers us all brothers and sisters. So in essence, people that you are targeting, you really should be looking at them in a different way. And you should really just kind of be examining really your motive behind it. Because honestly, you're just looking to satisfy yourself. I'm not knocking it. I was that way at one time. So that's how I can speak to it. But at the same time, you're just really watching yourself and thinking ahead, watching what is the end outcome to everything you do. Because one thing that people don't look at, and I really want us to kind of circle around on this, can people really use sex to treat emotional needs, or misuse sex? How can it be misused to treat emotional needs? Because I think in one way, when you just have a unhealthy appetite for it, and you just want to just stack them and rack them, I think in a way you have, there's some issues going on. You just haven't discovered them yet because there's something missing in you. See, what y'all think?
Well, I would say having sex ultimately will not fulfill a sexual need, because you're always going to go back to there. There's an underlying problem that's deeper than that. You have to get to the root of it, because you can have as much sex as you want, but me personally, I don't think it's going to fulfill you or sustain you over the long haul. Maybe temporary, maybe for a week or so. You might say, "Oh, I need that now. I feel better." But it's going to come back to really who you are and why you're doing this. And because the term what is called sex addict, sex addiction, and all those. You have people that have sex addictions and so forth, and they're constantly chasing that. particular need or whatever fulfillment, but are they ever attaining it? And you know that the lust of the flesh will never be satisfied. The more that you get, the more that you want, and all those type of things. And like I said, there's just going to be more devastation as you continue that particular cycle. So me, I don't think ultimately long term it can satisfy or take care of an emotional need.
I can jump in and just add to that. I think part of it is, it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier in the previous episode when we were talking about all the other things that are connected to sex that we don't talk about. And so people are basically reaching into sex for intimacy. So if I'm looking for intimacy, sex is a way for me to be intimate with someone or to feel connected to that particular person. If I'm looking for identity is in sex, because one could feel sexy or one could feel attractive as a result of somebody wanting to go to bed with me. So therefore, I give myself to them in order for me to reinforce the fact that I'm sexy. You know, the feeling confident or feeling secure can be attached to sex, and so feeling safe can be attached to sex, because all of these dynamics are all basically wrapped into that intimacy that one experiences when they are in that relationship. That's why it's important that you don't give it away to everyone, because at some point you cheapen it. It doesn't cheapen, but you cheapen it because of how you are misusing it in your own personal life.
Yeah, I would say I think it's dangerous to get to that point to where you absolutely need sex for your emotions to be fulfilled, because I personally think it's possible to have emotionless sex, right? Like you're just doing it because it was available, it was there, and it was done. And after you finish, the problem still exists, right? That's like, going to a doctor, getting prescribed a lot of medications that manage the pain, but don't directly address the pain, so you can no longer feel the pain. Mm-hmm. And so you guys were alluding to it earlier, like at some point you got to address what's making you feel so empty from an emotional standpoint, right? It could be a relationship with God that you're lacking. It could be a relationship with a family. Like it can just be so many things that you're lacking. But to turn to something where you just kind of like, sometimes it gets to a point where you just use people for that, but you never connect with the person, I think is even more damaging to your emotions than it is helpful. So I think you definitely got to be careful with that and really address the root of the issues and correct that, versus look to other people and what women have to be able to correct your problems.
Y'all made some great points. So normally I try to argue with y'all, but I can't knock none of y'all say. I'm just gonna take all of it. But one thing I will say, I'm gonna speak specifically to those who may have been heartbroken. Okay, a lot of times men don't deal with this. Women are the ones who normally talk about heartbreak, but a lot of men out there, you done had your heart broken by somebody, and as a result of that heartbreak, now you cold. Now you're mad. Instead of, man, I could been wasting my time with her and she done dogged me out. I could have been out here, getting mine, doing my thing. So now you did a complete 180. Now you are here for all you can get because you've been hurt. Not really even that you so-called want to, but your vengeance toward every woman that you come across who you give the appeal of maybe want to get to know, but just to sleep with them, that's your vindication to that one who broke your heart. So my thing is, if you find yourself in that predicament, you need to kind of step back, look yourself in the mirror and face that. Because when you do come across the right one, and even when you think that you might be able to settle yourself down, the way the character that you built, that's gonna make it awfully hard for you. And you might mess that up. So I'm just telling you, slow your roll, look at yourself, deal with the issue of the emotions of that person that hurt you. You don't have to retaliate toward them, but you need to deal with that. You need to face yourself and roll with that. And you might be like, well, that's just where I am right now. I'm strapping up and, doing what I can do. It doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's what you're doing to yourself later on. But even with the whole strapping up issue, let's throw this out. what really, let's say, I'm following protocol. Okay, I'm doing my thing. I'm making sure I'm right when I'm getting out there because I'm not going to stop how I'm operating. But what is safe sex? And is safe sex safe? I know it's a little tongue twister right there. Don't ask me to say that fast. But really though, is it safe?
I think I think it can be, I think there can be measures put in place to prevent as much as you possibly can. And I'll make this analogy. Like think about a construction worker, right? They wear a hard hat. It's a safety measure that has to be put in place. But if a cinder block drops from, you know, a couple 100 feet in the air, is that hard hat necessarily going to stop that cinder block from doing what it needs to do? I I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't study velocity, but I kind of feel like that hard hat kind of doesn't matter at that point when something that heavy is traveling with that much force. So a hard hat is put in place and goggles are put in place for preventative measures to help mitigate issues. And I think that's what birth control is for. I think that's what condoms are for. I think that's just what awareness is for, to like put forth those measures so you can mitigate as many risks as you possibly can. And that's why you get the warning that nothing is guaranteed. And I think it would be wrong if these companies marketed things in a way where, oh, it's 100% guaranteed to stop everything. Like, no, that's just not true. But here's what you can do to lower your risk.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna jump in on that. I like what Austin is saying there, but I'm gonna take I'm gonna address it from a couple different standpoints. First of all, I think he was alluding to the fact that I'm assuming, and correct me, Brother Austin, if I'm wrong, from the STD standpoint, getting sexually transmitted disease and things like that. Is that what you're talking about with the hard hat and so forth, protecting you and covering you?
Yeah,
From
that I
those,
mean that and pregnancy, yeah.
oh, and pregnancy. But I would look at it from this perspective. Outside of the confines of marriage, I don't think there's safe sex. And let's just say the husband and the wife, they're monogamous. It's just those two, no adulterous affairs, or anything like that. So husband and wife, they're together and they're doing what they're supposed to do under the confines of marriage. Now, with that being said, the reason I'm saying I don't think there's safe sex, because whenever you engage in sex outside of marriage, there's going to be some type of damage. First of all, we know God forbids it. It's a prohibition. Don't do it. Then again, you're going to have emotional damage that's going to be done to someone else. Someone is always going to suffer. There's going to be some collateral damage. Like you say, in addition to there could be pregnancies and all this type of stuff, there could be STDs. But from the emotional standpoint, I don't think no one wins. Even though, you may say, hey, we're agreeing on this, we're just here to have a hookup or whatever. But somehow when you're having sex, but from my experience, it doesn't mean that is the answer for everything. But I don't think there's safe sex outside of marriage, because whatever that looks like, emotional, physical, there's going to be some type of harm. So short answer, I would say no, to perfectly answer that question. I don't believe there's safe sex. You could, even with the STDs, they say a condom is what, 99 point whatever the percentage is, effective and so forth, those types of things. So nah. And the only safe sex I would say is abstinence. Just don't do it. If you want safe sex.
Yeah. Actually, condoms don't protect you from most STDs. So the only thing the condoms are really designed to protect you from is unwanted pregnancy. As the the B pill, the morning after pill, whatever, from the little rods they put in the arms to the things they basically insert in the vagina to condoms, all those things are all preventative for pregnancy. None of them are geared towards protecting you from STDs. And I think that's one of the major misconceptions that people have when it comes to safe sex, is that they think by grabbing these things and doing these things, they're protecting themselves from the dangers, but in actuality, they're only really shielding themselves from one particular thing, and that is bringing a child into this world. And so I think on the damage side of it also, I think for men, we don't walk away with the emotional damage that comes with those particular decisions. But I really believe, because women are hardwired to bring children into the world, that every time there is a baby scare, or every time that young lady walks into a clinic and she makes a decision to either abort that child because of that sexual activity, or she even just has the experience of being in the clinic and then makes a decision not to and decides to keep the child, that forever alters that young lady's life and how she now is going to move forward in the world, regardless of however that male is impacted, that female is impacted, life has been impacted forever. And I know some men basically come back around and then they want to have the relationship with the child. And I know we have the dynamics of, I want to have the child, but she doesn't want to have the child, and I should have a say or a right, you know, and that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. I'm just simply saying that all those dynamics fall into the fact that safe sex is not safe. Is that there's the emotional dynamics, you know, that play a role that makes it an unsafe environment. And I think mainly it's because we are experiencing out of the context and the way it was supposed to be shared. It was supposed to be shared in a covenant relationship with someone that you would not have to be concerned whether that individual was going to leave. If a child was introduced, you still celebrate it because now you are expanding that family dynamic into something more than a husband and a wife. Now we're bringing children into the world, and now we're starting off into building legacy. And so, yeah, I think safe sex is not safe for those reasons.
If I could just throw this in to throw a little humor in here too. I think back when I was in college and high school, we had a saying so much. I don't know if you guys have heard this saying, but you know how they talk about the condoms, men using condoms, they would call them rubber or latex, and the ones that the extra sensitive and so forth. But we had a little running joke talk about most men that I knew, they used the, I don't know if you ever heard this, called the Davy Crockett, the bear skin. That's what we talked about. You might get it later down the road, but anyway, that's what we were known to use, Davy Crockett, you know. I think you guys will get where I'm going with that. But that's an old 1980s joke, so you can see I'm older than you guys. And it's people's not sex.
That sounds more like 1880s right there.
Yeah.
That's what bear skins.
I say by the time I got around, we start saying raw dog. So
was that what it was? Raw dog?
That's yeah, that's what we said.
Oh, look, hey, look, I love how y'all opened the book up on this one because y'all flipped it open real wide. But I'm just gonna say, and this is alluded to also, man, think about this. A woman's body gives off secretions. It floods out. So the condom is only covering your Johnson. The rest of you is still getting splashed with whatever's in her. So you have to look at things like, you know, crabs, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis. I mean, it's not even so much about the HIV/AIDS, but you just have to look at other things that either they're gonna take you a long time to get rid of, or things or even herpes that you're gonna have to live with for the rest of your life. So you might be that cat that, you know, be like, you know what, I'm gonna still do what I do. I've been safe to this point. I'm gonna keep it real. That's cool. But again, just like the gentleman alluded to, you need to think about the long-term ramifications of every single thing. You might be out there committed to knocking them out the park, a different one every night. But again, think about that long term and think of what you're doing to yourself. You may not be any good by the time you decide to settle down with a wife. And men don't think about that. We can wear ourselves out because mentally, if you run yourself through the gamut, what's the excitement? Doesn't matter how beautiful she is, where's your excitement? Now you're going to even more extreme measures because you've exhausted the normalcy of it. Now you have to go to extreme. It's like food, okay? If you use the food, and I know I'm rambling, but if you use the food without condiments, you good. But you give a person some condiments, and then they start mixing up, putting pulled pork on the hamburger and onion rings and getting the barbecue sauce and getting all these different mix of flavors. And then all of a sudden you drawn back to just the regular hamburger and a bun. What's this? I'm not eating this. This isn't what I want. Your taste has been ruined. Even it may be the best meat you could have had, but your taste has been ruined by previous experiences. So I just want to really drop that out there because a lot of men don't really think about that long term.